Hi, my name is Diane Silvester, and I'd love to share with you one of my favorite stories. It's out of print, but I think it's still very valuable for today. It's called The Warm Fuzzy Tale. As you can see, someone named Marissa had it. I had to buy it used, but I've got it now. So without further ado, I'd like to share with you the original Warm Fuzzy Tale by Claude Steiner with pictures by Joanne Dick. Once upon a time, a very long time ago, there lived two very happy people called Tim and Maggie with their two children, John and Lucy. To understand how happy they were, you have to understand how things were in those days. You see, in those happy days, everybody was given at birth a small, soft, fuzzy bag. Anytime a person reached into this bag, they were able to pull out a warm fuzzy. Warm fuzzies were very much in demand because whenever someone was given a warm fuzzy, it made him feel warm and fuzzy all over. People who didn't get warm fuzzies regularly were in danger of developing a sickness in their backs, which caused them to shrivel up and die. In those days, it was very easy to get warm fuzzies. Anytime that someone felt like it, he might walk up to you and say, "I'd like to have a warm fuzzy." Well, of course. Why, thank you. And so here he is asking for the warm fuzzy, and of course, and thank you, and there's that warm fuzzy. You would then reach into your bag and pull out a fuzzy the size of a little girl's hand. As soon as the fuzzy saw the light of day, it would smile and blossom into a large, shaggy, warm fuzzy. You then would lay it on the person's shoulder or head or lap, and it would snuggle up and melt right against their skin and make them feel good all over. Here's the next pictures. People were always asking each other for warm fuzzies, and since they were always given freely, getting enough of them was never a problem. There was always plenty to go around, and as a consequence, everyone was happy and felt warm and fuzzy most of the time. Isn't that nice? Nice. Everybody's got their fuzzies. You see that? One day, a bad witch became angry because everyone was so happy and no one was buying potions and salves. There's that witch trying to sell her potions and salves. She doesn't look very happy. The witch was very clever and devised a wicked plan. One beautiful morning, the witch crept up to Tim while Maggie was playing with her daughter and whispered in his ear, "See here, Tim. Look at all the fuzzies that Maggie is giving to Lucy. You know, if she keeps it up, eventually she's going to run out and there won't be any left for you." Tim was astonished. He turned to the witch and said, "Do you mean to tell me that there isn't a warm fuzzy in our bag every time we reach into it?" And the witch said, "No, absolutely not. And once you run out, that's it. You don't have any more." And with this, the witch flew away, laughing and cackling. See, there's the witch talking to Tim. Tim took this to his heart and began to notice every time Maggie gave up a warm fuzzy to someone else. Eventually, he got very worried and upset because he liked Maggie's warm fuzzies, very much and did not want to give them up. He certainly did not think it was right for Maggie to be spending all her warm fuzzies on the children and on the other people. He began to complain every time he saw Maggie giving a warm fuzzy to someone else. And because Maggie liked him very much, she stopped giving warm fuzzies to other people as often and reserved them just for him. The children watched this and soon began to get the idea that it was wrong to give up warm fuzzies anytime you were asked or felt like it. They too became very careful. They would watch their parents closely, and whenever they felt that one of their parents was giving too many warm fuzzies to others, they also began to object. They began to feel worried whenever they gave away too many warm fuzzies. Even though they found a warm fuzzy every time they reached into their bag, they reached in less and less and became more and more stingy. Soon people began to notice the lack of warm fuzzies, and they began to feel less warm and less fuzzy. They began to shrivel up, and occasionally people would die from lack of warm fuzzies. Shriveled up and died because of lack of warm fuzzies. More and more people went to the witch to buy potions and salves, and even though they didn't seem to work, well, the situation was getting very serious indeed. The bad witch really didn't want the people to die, since dead people couldn't really buy salves and potions, so a new plan was devised. Here she is, selling her potions and salves, right? See that? There's a new plan, a new evil plan, right? See what it is. Everyone was given a bag that was very similar to the fuzzy bag, except this one was cold when the fuzzy bag was warm. Inside of the witch's bag were cold pricklies. These cold pricklies did not make people feel warm and fuzzy, but it made them feel cold and prickly instead. And here's someone getting one, right? And they're going, ow, ow, because it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel very good. And see, here's the free cold pricklies being given out by that witch, or dark witch. But they did prevent people's backs from shriveling up. So from then on, everybody said, I want a warm fuzzy. People were so worried about depleting their supply, would say, I can't give you a warm fuzzy, but would you like a cold prickly? See that? Light's a little bright to see the pictures. Oh, let's see. There you go. And then the person has the cold prickly and they're going, brr, because it's so cold. Sometimes two people would walk up to each other thinking they could get a warm fuzzy, but one or the other of them would change his mind and they would wind up giving each other cold pricklies. So while very few people were dying, a lot of people were still very unhappy and feeling very cold and prickly. The situation got very complicated. Warm fuzzies, which used to be thought of free as air, became extremely valuable. This person is saying, your fuzzies are your life. This caused people to do all sorts of things to obtain them. Before the witch had appeared, people used to gather in groups of 3 or 4 or 5, never caring much who was giving warm fuzzies to whom. After the coming of the witch, people began to pair off and to reserve all their warm fuzzies for each other exclusively. People who forgot themselves and gave a fuzzy to someone else would feel guilty because they knew that their partner would probably resent the loss. People who could not find a generous partner had to buy their fuzzies, and they worked long hours to earn the money. Goodness, Tim, these look just like real fuzzies. So they're making them in this picture. Look at that. See what's happening. Another thing which happened was that some people would take cold pricklies, which were limitless and freely available, coat them white and fluffy, and pass them off as warm fuzzies. These counterfeit warm fuzzies were really plastic fuzzies, and they caused additional difficulties. For instance, two people would get together, freely exchange plastic fuzzies, which presumably should have made them feel good. But they come away feeling bad instead. Since they thought they had been exchanging warm fuzzies, people grew very confused about this, never realizing that their cold, prickly feelings were really the result of the fact they'd been given a lot of plastic fuzzies. The situation was very, very dismal. And it started because of the coming of the witch who made people believe that someday, when they least expected, they might reach into their warm fuzzy bag and find no more. Not long ago, a lovely, strong woman with big hips and a happy smile came to this unhappy land. Here she is. Have a warm fuzzy. What, me? Oh, thank you. She seemed not to have heard about the witch and was not worried about running out of warm fuzzies. She gave them out freely, even when not asked. People called her the hip woman. And some disapproved of her because she was giving the children the idea that they should not worry about running out of warm fuzzies. Look, they gave us warm fuzzies. Egads, stop, you'll run out. Young whippersnapper. Here, kitty, kitty. Blah, humbug. The children liked her very much because they felt good around her. They too began to give out warm fuzzies whenever they felt like it. The grown-ups became concerned and decided to pass a law to protect the children from using up the supply of warm fuzzies. The law made it a criminal offense to give out warm fuzzies in a reckless manner without a license. Many children, however, seemed not to know or care, and in spite of the law, they continued to give each other warm fuzzies whenever they felt like it and whenever asked. Because there were many, many children, almost as many as the grown-ups, it began to look as if maybe the children would have their way. So there's the children frolicking, and then there's somebody with a loudspeaker going, I repeat, return all the warm fuzzies to their bags and show your license. And the kids running away going, hee, 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 hee. As of now, it's hard to say what will happen. Will the forces of law and order stop the children? Are the grown-ups going to join with the hip woman and the children in taking a chance that there will always be as many warm fuzzies as needed? Will Tim and Maggie, recalling the days when they were so happy and warm fuzzies were unlimited, begin to give away warm fuzzies freely again? What's going to happen? The struggle spread all over the land, and it's probably going on right where you live. If you want to, and I really hope you do, you can join by freely giving and asking for warm fuzzies, and by being as loving and healthy as you can be. The end. The end. It's really hard to see in this light, but it's the end. I'm Diane Silvester, and thank you for joining me for the Warm Fuzzy Tale. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.